Steven Nass was planning on being here. Unfortunately, we won't see him. Connor Zilish was unable to attend. Connor Hall wanted to attend this race, but there were concerns that he had over the potential storm and flooding that he made clear on Facebook a little bit earlier on this week as the potential of where they were not able to come out here or were concerned about being able to make the trip. They're not out here, but I believe he will be at the Bobby Isaac Memorial at Hickory Motor Speedway tomorrow. And by the way, so much great racing going on FloRacing this weekend. You talk about New River All-American Speedway that'll be running, the Bobby Isaac Memorial as well, Wake County Speedway. Again, you can watch all of that on FloRacing. Big weekend for late model stock car racing in the Southeast.
So much happening, and we've got you covered here on FloRacing all weekend long as the field continues on with their pace laps. We mentioned qualifying was held earlier on this afternoon. The driver who ended up laying down the flyer in quick time is the current point leader at this racetrack in Matt Cox. His teammate Sam Yarbrough, who oftentimes goes to the racetrack in Cars Tour events as one of the wrenchmen for Chad McCumbie's operation, also out of the same stable for McCumbie Elliott Racing. Clocked in second, Dale Earnhardt Jr., the icebreaker winner Doug Barnes, row 2, Jonathan Schaefer, Cody Kelly, row 3. Laney Bice, second in points here at the Florence Motor Speedway, clocked in 7th. Bryant Barnhill, 8th. And what he says is the biggest race of his family, or to him, the biggest race of the year is the South Carolina 400. What it would mean to him to lock his way in, should he be able to come from 8th spot to win. And rounding out your top 10, Brandon Pierce. And defending South Carolina 400 victor, Brendan Butterbean Queen.
11th will be Chase Bridges. Going from 12th tonight will be Raja Caruth. Trent Barnes, he'll go from the 13th spot in his number 1 car. Justin Campbell will start just behind him. And 13th, 14th to Justin Milliken. Paige Rogers, she'll go from 15th, 16th to Ryan Galinsky. 17th, Travis Truitt. 18th, David Roberts. 19th, Jamie Weatherford. That will round out the field here as far as concerned.
1 to go signal being utilized by the chief starter this time by. Matter of fact, I'm going to double the field here. As well. And we will wind things down 53 laps. Who will on a 400 tonight as the one signal given at the line.
Eric, I'm just so amped for this race. We've had so many drivers come across today and express as though they can go win this race. So many different strategies. Is it going to be like the Cars Tour race we saw earlier where you park the bus and then try to charge through the field? It's going to be something to see. That's for sure.
Who is off pair of teammates, and Matt Cox on the outside of the 51, Sam Yarbrough 95 inside. We are underway from Florence Motor. Matt Cox rocket is on the outside for the lead.
Barnes able to slide down to the bottom of the racetrack in 3rd. We saw a little bit of 3 wide further on back as Brandon Pierce tried to get alongside of Chase Briscoe and Raja Caruth, but as they rocket down the front straightaway, leader is going to be Matt Cox by himself on the front row. You can see where Junior has fallen back already a couple of positions back into 5th. As they work mostly single file, and a huge separation already here, Eric, between the front 7 or 8 or so cars and the rest of the field, kind of led by Brendan Queen, as they have absolutely taken that strategy of parking the bus right now.
We're going to see a lot of drivers elect to pace themselves early. The ones at the front of the pack not doing just that yet, at least not by the looks of it. Others, as you mentioned, back to Brendan Butterbean Queen. They seem to be perfectly content and complacent with riding there. As a change for the lead early, Doug Barnes goes to the point. He has elected to leapfrog around both of the Elliott McCumbie cars, and he's pulled the number 13 of Cody Kelly along with him up to 2nd spot.
So a couple of experienced drivers here at Florence Motor Speedway. You know, this is something that Doug Barnes was talking to me about earlier, as we see once again a battle for the race lead. Barnes not going to put up much of a fight, and many of the fans here at Florence come to their feet as the 13 of Cody Kelly. We heard a huge reaction when this driver was able to win the pole award in the Karts Tour race here, and not only has he gotten the lead, he's pulled out by several car lengths to Doug Barnes Jr. You know, this is one of the things I talked to Doug Barnes about earlier today when he led the icebreaker and he was pacing the field. He said, you're always questioning yourself here at this racetrack when you're leading. Do you really want to lead? How much are you going to push the issue? Am I pushing too much because everybody else is saving more than I am? That is the concern for Doug Barnes Jr. right now, who runs in the second spot.
Good news for him is right now that 13 of Kelly is pretty much the carrot hanging in front of the dog at the moment that he could chase, and he only has to be able to keep enough distance to keep him in sight, knowing that this race has a guaranteed stoppage coming a little bit later on. Some other cars all throughout the field continuing to jockey for position, but it is all Cody Kelly at the head of the pack. That hornet's nest amongst the front runners has kind of calmed down just a little bit. Kelly's lead is about, we'll call it, 4 car lengths in turns 1 and 2. Barnes continues to run in second spot. In the midfield, however, Trent Barnes is leading about a second pack through turns 1 and 2. Got a little bit of separation between he and the 5 of Chase Briscoe, and they appear to be trying to bide their time to keep the Hoosier rubber underneath them for as long as absolutely possible.
You know, the laps of these drivers are running kind of mid-17s. I believe it was a 17.6 that was from our pole sitter and Matt Cox. Right now, these drivers, your race leaders, are in the 18.4s, 18.5s, and further on back in the field, they're down in the mid-19 second bracket. That is the difference in strategy that these drivers are implementing right now. And I mean, at a certain point, it's almost like these drivers, these cars are going to stall, that they are lifting so much down the straightaway, using as little throttle as possible. As you can see, Cox and Yarborough making their way through the corner as well.
Saw a quick momentary pass position there as Lainey Bice got her way up to third. Now all over the back bumper of the number 88 of Doug Barnes Jr., who comes into the night second in national points for the NASCAR Advanced Auto Parts Weekly Series. This could, of course, be a big night for him in terms of trying to close up that gap, if at all possible, over Connor Hall, who, as Blake mentioned earlier, initially intended on running this race, but due to the storm that came up through the area, unfortunately for Hall, they deemed it would be necessary or best for him to lay back and perhaps turn their attention to the event at Hickory Motor Speedway tomorrow. But right now, Barnes continues to hold second. The 21 of Lainey Bice in third. Matt Cox, the pole sitter, fourth. Sam Yarborough, who started on the front row, rounding out the top 5.
And right now, Cody Kelly has pulled out to about a half straightaway lead. You can see the battle and change for second place as Lainey Bice will go on by Doug Barnes Jr., make her way up into the second spot. But again, are trailing Cody Kelly already, Eric, by 2.5 seconds. Again, the push and pull, especially for this driver in Lainey Bice. Longtime Legends racer, a Young Lions winner in the Race of Champions at Las Vegas Bull Ring last year. Also somebody that, as you mentioned, has been competing here at Florence Motor Speedway all season long, is second in the points to Matt Cox. So you have to imagine that she has a lot of experience, knows how to approach a night like this, although this race is a lot longer than what they're typically used to running here at Florence Motor Speedway in a weekly feature.
And you just perfectly led me into my next thought, Blake, because I was going to say, now that
we've had a lot of time, about a year's worth.
I guess when you work together this long, that'll happen. Yeah. But seeing some of the weekly competitors rise up to the front of the pack, you would think that might spell disaster for the rest of the competition, that Kelly and Bice, who are here on a weekly basis, are putting themselves up towards the head of the field. But you're right, Blake. They typically run an average of, say, 40-lap features here. This is a much longer race, and it may put those two, as well as the other weekly competitors, in some uncharted territory when we get down towards the pay window opening. And that's something we will be keeping our eyes on, with Kelly and Bice remaining at the front of the field. Battles continue throughout the pack. One of the cars that started shotgun on the field, Jamie Weatherford, has picked up a few spots early. And that's Justin Campbell in the 6, who has just made the pass. Campbell now working on David Roberts in the 18 for what would be 14th spot.
And again, you can see most of the cars lined up single file right now. A lot of patience, a lot of respect between these drivers right now. but expect, especially at this racetrack, as everybody's kind of riding along and deciding where they want to position themselves, how much tire they want to have left by the time we get to that break with 53 laps to go, that this track will widen out, that there are going to be drivers that are able to ride where they are right now, but also go to the middle, go to the top side, and really widen out this racetrack. But at least from what I'm seeing right now, everybody talks about in racing right now about, oh, well, you know, there's no respect. People just run each other over. I've seen a lot of respect so far. Again, jockeying for position and thinking later on down the road. But as far as battling and running side by side is concerned, I wouldn't say that there's a lack of respect in this racing so far tonight.
Speaking of comers and goers, here is one of the drivers who is going to the front. That is Sam Yarbrough, who has got up to and past Doug Barnes Jr. for second, up to and past Laney Bice for what is now the runner-up spot. And when you think of the Florence Motor Speedway, you'd be hard-pressed to not think of Sam Yarbrough. Mostly in the sense of the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina native. He certainly cut his teeth at the now-lost Speedway. He was a six-time champion at Myrtle Beach, won the last race